Sometimes, the work is so, you try to be true. You feel sometimes it's on the verge of a kind of craziness, but it isn't really craziness. It's really getting the truest part of yourself out, and it's very hard, I mean, it's not easy, let's say. And yet it can be very simple at the same time.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Musings with Mary. I'm Mary Muse, and today we're going to be talking about the Lover's card. The Lover's card is one of the major arcana cards of the tarot deck, which means it is one of the first 22 cards in the deck. Specifically, it is the number 6. The Lover's card corresponds to the astrological sign of Gemini. And pretty soon here, we're going to be going into Gemini season. And I'm a little biased when I say this, but it is one of my favorite seasons. I am a Gemini sun, so my birthday is coming up. Going to be 33 this year, pretty exciting. And I just thought that it might be fun to come on here and talk a little bit about this card. I think that there's a lot of ways that we can apply this card to our current world. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But mostly I just wanted to kind of dive into the symbolism within this card and talk about the binary. So what is the binary, right? First of all, the word binary is defined as relating to, composed of, or involving two things. Binary is a term that's used across many different disciplines for many different things. When I think of the word binary, I think of the gender binary. And this card, being represented by Gemini, containing the imagery of two individuals on the opposite side of a spectrum, is very much reminiscent of this idea of gender binary. But I want to get a little deeper and talk about how we can redefine this Lover's card outside of just the gender binary, because I think we can get really stuck in that. And I am of the belief that traditional meanings of the tarot are very important for us to learn, and the symbolism that contains religious dogma and historical context are important for us to know. But I also believe that it's our job as tarot readers, as people that enjoy tarot, to redefine these cards for our modern times. So we're going to do a little bit of that today. If you are interested in working with the tarot more intentionally, I do serve as the headmistress of tarot in a little school called That Witch School, which has been such a lovely place for me to retreat to as I've been taking a break from social media. If you're interested in learning more about tarot and astrology, then I really encourage you to go ahead and check out the school. I have the link in the show notes below. I've talked about That Witch School a little bit on other episodes as well. Maybe someday I'll do a full episode with Danny or something about it. But it is a wonderful place. I get to do a monthly tarot circle with the members within there. And I just opened up for tarot tutoring for That Witch School students and had my first session with my first client last week. And it was so amazing. But anyway, back to the subject of today. I will be posting an informational post in That Witch School about the Lover's card this coming week. And I am excited. I'm excited to be writing that actually today, probably right after I do this podcast. But for this episode, I want to talk about the general meanings and then get a little bit deeper into what the Lover's card means for me specifically as a Gemini sun and as a person who also struggles with the gender binary. If you didn't know, I am somewhere on the non-binary scale, which just means that sometimes I don't quite feel like just a woman. I feel a little bit like a mixture between masculine and feminine, and I've always kind of felt that way. If you've heard the term tomboy before, that's me. I know a lot of you might find that to be surprising because the way I show up online is very feminine, very high femme, and I enjoy showing up that way. I really do. It's fun. It's like a little costume that I put on for work. But I'm in this new era of discovering and allowing the unfolding of this non-binary side of myself. And so I think this Lover's card is very interesting to look into from that perspective. If you don't know what the Lover's card looks like, I'm going to suggest that you look it up, or you can watch this on YouTube. I'm going to be having a little picture of the Lover's card on the YouTube video, so you can go over there to see what I'm talking about. But the Lovers generally, according to the Rider-Waite-Smith deck and decks that are derived from that imagery, the Lovers contains two naked individuals, pretty much Adam and Eve, right? Eve is pictured on the left, Adam is pictured on the right. And between them is this angel up in the sky, backed by the sun. And in the background, you see this big mountain that is pushed in between them. Behind the two individuals are two trees. Behind Eve is the tree of knowledge, which contains the apples and the snake. And behind Adam is the tree of life, which has 12 flames upon the branches, which are said to represent the 12 zodiac signs. So already this imagery is very complex, right? So we've got this Garden of Eden kind of feel to this card. There's a lot of ways that we can interpret that, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert in Christian mythology. But to talk about this card and to not mention those things would be irresponsible. So let's get into it a little bit. First of all, we have these people pictured completely nude. In the original Rider-Waite, they are facing the viewer. In a lot of versions of these cards that have been made, they're actually facing the angel. Honestly, that could be a whole thing that we would go into. But really, the nudity in and of itself represents this bearing of the self to the other. This has a lot to do with relationships. This is the card. Whenever this card shows up, it is an homage to the union of two people. It doesn't have to be a feminine and a masculine person, it can represent two people regardless of gender, but it can also represent the union of the inner sides of yourself. And Danny, the headmistress of that witch school and my astrology mentor, has this lovely way of talking about this binary that is a little different than what a lot of spiritual people use. A lot of the time we'll talk about divine feminine, divine masculine, and I do talk about those two things, and I don't really have much of a problem with them, but I think it's really helpful to look at it from this perspective that Danny has chosen, which is right brain versus left brain. So right brain represents the creative side of ourselves, or the feminine side, and the left brain represents the analytical or the masculine side of ourselves. And this card can be a representation of those sides of ourselves, the right brain versus the left brain. We all have both sides of a brain. And the coolest thing about the right brain, left brain is that the right brain also controls the left side of the body and vice versa. So I think that's so interesting to look at it from that lens, in that they are oh my gosh, inextricably, oh my God, I can't say that word. Inextricably, is that a word? What the hell? They are inextricably, they are linked. They are linked. Oh my God. I had to take a break for myself there. This is what happens when I wake up and immediately record a podcast. Anyway, those sides of our brains are linked, right? They cannot be separated. Or they can, but they're not supposed to be separated. So I find that a really interesting way to look at this card as well, right? So if it's not necessarily the feminine masculine sides of ourselves, it's that creative versus the analytical sides of ourselves and how they come together to work together, right? It's the head versus the heart. And maybe not versus, it's the head and the heart working together, right? It's all about harmony. It's all about communication. Since this card is ruled by Gemini, I like to see the angel in the background as Mercury. That just feels good to me. It typically is seen as Archangel Michael. But I really love to look at that angel figure in the background as Mercury instead. For me personally, that feels better because I am not a Christian. I do not work with angels. There are some witches that work with angels. And if Archangel Michael feels like a figure you would like to work with, then I encourage you to do that. For me, Mercury feels better. And I also like the symbolism that Mercury brings to this card because, in the background, Mercury appears between these two figures, calling upon them to find a way to connect to each other, right? To communicate and really integrate each other's understanding so that they can come together as a unified force, right? Mercury, if you don't know, rules communication. And Gemini is ruled by Mercury, which is why this card is represented by Gemini. Obviously, we know that Gemini are the twins, right? Gemini represents the twins. So in that way, thinking about the lovers as the twins, this is how we can look into that self-reflection aspect of this card, right? Not so much this represents me and another person, but this represents me and the other me. The various me's that are inside of me. That's why this card can actually really represent our inner values, because our values are kind of sit between our head and heart, right? And it's our job to discern what is what within us. So when we get this card, again, it can really be an omen towards a relationship coming together, but it can also be a message for you to consider the duality within yourself. And the definition of duality is an instance of opposition or contrast between two concepts or two aspects of something, a dualism. Duality is all around us, and it's also an illusion because there is not, I think dualism and duality sometimes closes us off to the fact that there are multiple sides to every situation. It's not just black and white. It's not just this or that. And so that's kind of the message that I want to bring you through the lovers, is that the lovers have to learn that it's not black and white. Just because another person is separate from you does not mean that you are totally and completely different from them, right? And that I want to speak to that in terms of feminine and masculine energy as well, because we all have these traditionally feminine or traditionally masculine traits within ourselves. And as someone that does feel like I sit somewhere in between those two polar opposites as we see them, I think it's very valuable for every person, regardless of how you identify, to sit with the aspects of yourself that are put into one of those boxes. I think in our culture, not I think, I know in our culture, we are taught to be one or the other. We are taught that this is what these people do, this is what those people do. And it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. We can all do all of it. I'm here to tell you, you can have it all. And the lovers are about that, really. The lovers are about the unification between these two sides. And if you want to see that angelic figure in the middle as the culmination of these two sides, then feel free. Of course, angels are supposed to be these perfect beings, right? The angel within the Temperance card, which is later on in the Major Arcana deck, is this kind of non-binary figure within the deck. They are a little bit masculine, a little bit feminine, this kind of perfect being that sits between the two. And I think that that's really what this card is about, is the meshing of those two individuals. And I think Gemini teaches us about that a lot, because Gemini is not one or the other. Gemini is both. Gemini is both of the twins at once. And I think I'm laughing at myself right now for being such a Gemini sun about all of this, but I can't help it. It is what I am. I am a very early degree Gemini as well, 3-degree Gemini. And I just feel this so deeply in me that we don't have to choose. You get to be both. You get to be all of it. You don't have to choose. And when you're working in partnership with someone else, I think whenever one or the other can work to blur those lines between this binary that we've been taught, we can better understand each other. And that kind of brings me to the imagery of the mountain in the back of the card, which represents the journey towards that union, right? You got to climb this mountain before we can find that angelic connection, right? The mountain brings us closer to that divine energy. But it's a hard road, right? It takes work and time to get there. And that can be applied to relationships, that can be applied to your relationship to yourself. And this work requires for us to unpack a few things, right? If you're gonna travel to the top of a mountain, if you're a backpacker, maybe you can back me up on this, but you wanna pack light, right? You're not going to take a lot of extra things that you don't need. You're gonna really take a look at what is needed and what is not, and only put what you absolutely need upon your back. So symbolically, this could be seen as us unpacking and releasing the shackles of the binary that have been placed upon us since we were born. And it really is since we were born. We all experience the extreme pressure of performing to a certain set of standards depending on what our genitals are. And it's a bit silly, and it's very limiting. It's very, very limiting for all of us in many different ways. And I could go on a rant about the patriarchy, but I'll save that for another episode. I think it's worth us going on this journey to unpack the ways that this dualism, this polarity has been pushed on us. Because you can become a far more well-rounded person if you allow yourself to embody both the left and right brain aspects of yourself, right? So that's really my message. That's really my message for this card. And I hope that it resonated with you. It's one of my favorite cards for sure, not just because it's represented by Gemini, but that's part of it. And I think that it's so interesting. This card also has like a sister card, which is actually the devil. If you are a person that likes to read tarot, I encourage you to go and look at the devil card next to the lover's card, especially if you have a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and see the parallels between these two cards. They're very interesting. I actually did a workshop a few years ago. I think it's probably 2 or 3 years ago now. I did a workshop about the lovers and the devil card over in That Witch School. You can access it if you join. And I go into the ways that those cards mirror each other. So this card, the lover's card, is like the positive aspects of this union, and the devil card is more like a reckoning with the ways that duality and this polarity chain us and bind us. So actually, it's pretty connected to what I've talked about today. So the shadows of the lovers that I've talked about today, this, restriction that we feel from needing to perform to a certain standard of womanhood or manhood, can definitely be seen in the devil card as well. But I digress. If you're interested in that, you know where to go. I hope that this episode was interesting for you to listen to. And I hope that if you're interested in more tarot stuff, you can check out That Witch School and join us for our monthly tarot circle, which is coming up this coming Monday. So that will be Monday let me get the date up here, Monday the 19th at 8 p.m. EST. If you can't make it live with us, don't worry. There is a replay that you can catch whenever you're available. So I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and I'll see you in the next episode. You can visit XOXO.com to see all of Mary's links. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast on all your favorite listening platforms. And if you feel inclined, leave a 5-star review for us. Musings with Mary is listener sponsored, so if you'd like to support the podcast, please check out our Patreon. Shout out to all our current patrons. Thank you so much for the support. We'll see you in the next episode.